You have to keep the projector mind busy, and you have to keep it busy being at the top of the hierarchy. Remember, that's where projectors are intended to be. They're intended to sit at the top, in terms of the way the structure works, which means that they have to have the capacity and the vision, to be able to see things, how they work, and to be able to work well with others. Because after all, they're dependent on the other. Their gift is, once recognized, then they can work well with those who recognize them. Projectors have a horrible time with people who don't recognize them. Because, of course, they end up living out their relationship with them through the conditioned centers. And they never feel good in those relationships. So this is a magical thing for the projector mind. And it becomes, if I could give you the language of that mind, it wouldn't be pleasant. It's very superior and snotty. They don't see me. And all of a sudden this mind begins to really feel good about itself because they suddenly recognize, they don't see me, fools. They're never going to get anything from me. And this one over here, they see me. Maybe I'll do something with them. Do you know what I mean? In other words, the mind takes on that whole trip. And of course, that way the mind's fooled. It's busy with all of that stuff. And while it's busy with all of that stuff, the God's willing, you get to the place where you finally get the invitation. And you finally see, this really does work, And then the thing that happens that's the most beautiful thing for projectors is that after that, it never stops. In other words, you get to recognize that the more and more you're within your nature, the more and more your aura resonates that demand. The demand of the invitation, the demand of the recognition, and that you'll see that as the projector matures in their process, those people that don't recognize them don't approach them. They don't even get in their aura. Because again, the non-energy type is really here to be deeply involved in the environmental aura, which means that there's all this focus and necessity to grasp, to deal with, to integrate with the other. So the minds for the non-energy type, so important for them because it gives them the time they need to actually experience the strategy. And again, for non-energy types, because the strategies are not all the time, that it can take years for them to build up enough security in that process. Again, if you're a generator, and you go through this process of finding out who you're not, and you start responding to what's coming at you, within weeks, you can get the sense of the legitimacy of what all that is. It doesn't mean that you're that you can let go of your doubts or whatever, but it really does mean that, it's pretty much fixed in you now how that works and that it really works properly. But if you're a non-energy type, no. It's wonderful that you get to that invitation finally. But the gap between that invitation, discovering whether it was really worthwhile, because again, you got to take on the energy, you got to do whatever is involved, and then to get to the next invitation, do you know what I mean? In other words, you have to see that it's not the same kind of reassuring process that you get as an energy type. And that's something where the negative response to that is the sense of, well, why me? How come these energy types get this and we don't? All of this kind of comparison stuff, and I wish I wasn't a non-energy type, and blah, blah, blah. And it's very important to see that these are just specific frequencies of the way we operate. And that if you do develop the mental system correctly, then the whole process develops correctly. There's less resistance. When I was, first told about the cycle of the digestion of the knowledge, I was told that it actually only takes 3.5 years. That's what the voice told me. In the sense of, not that it didn't say it was a 7-year cycle, but it said that the process theoretically only takes 3.5 years. And basically what that means is that 3.5 years can be made up of a day today and not a day tomorrow. There's 3.5 years of being yourself in a 7-year cycle that's built in, if you know what I mean. And for projectors, that can seem like forever. It could just seem like forever. Same thing for reflectors. It would just seem like forever. As a matter of fact, it is easier for a reflector. So many things are, in fact. It is easier for a reflector to be comfortable with their frequency than it is for a projector, because a projector always has to wait for the invitation. But then again, the reflector doesn't. The reflector can wait for something to respond to. It doesn't have to be formal. They have to take their cycle to get to it as a decision, but they actually have a quicker feedback. And we'll see why, because their minds need to be absorbed every day. But for the projector, the cards are stacked against the projector, and basically they're stacked for a reason. If you're going to be at the top of the ladder, you're going to have to really work to get there. And it's one of the most important things for projectors to understand is that, they're here to be the leaders of the hierarchy. They're here to replace the manifester. And in order for them to get to that, they're not going to be given that on a silver platter the way the manifester was. The manifester didn't have to earn it. The manifester simply could get things done. And for most of our history, getting things done was the only thing that mattered. It was the only thing that mattered, and we didn't have these collective concerns and all of that stuff. At the best, it was tribal. But the projector has to learn, has to pay the price, and that they can't get to the top without others. And they can't stay at the top without others, and on and on and on and on and on. In other words, they have to learn their process. They have to get there. They have to realize their own worth. They have to realize the worth of others. They have to go through all of that process.